This is an incident that happened somewhere in Saudi Arabia in 1982. There were many sheep farms in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia, and these farms were far away from the locality. The owner did not come easily to those farms. They used to visit with friends and family every few months. But those who were entrusted with the responsibility of looking after the farm delivered their needs once a week through someone. Even those who were in charge of looking after the farm were not allowed to leave the farm and go anywhere else. So they had no chance of contact with the city and civilization. And most of the time, for cost cutting, the owners employed only one person on a farm. Although these farms have all the modern conveniences present, such advanced technology was unavailable in the middle of the desert in 1982. Even the electricity supply was not there. An Asian named Ali took a job on one such sheep farm and found that he had to look after the whole farm alone. Ali was very brave, so he did not mind working on a farm. On that farm, he had a cottage for his stay, and next to the cottage was a sheepfold. He was having a good time there. The farm owner would occasionally come to collect the sheep and then provide him with the supplies he needed. A street line and the Rocky Mountains could be seen far away from there. There was silence all around, and the entire desert was silent. One day, the farm owner came and told him that the farm was very dirty and the smell was emanating from the dirt. He asked him to clean the farm. He pointed to a place and said to dig a hole and throw all the dirt in that hole to cover it with sand. Saying this, the farm owner left. So after the farm owner left, Ali started digging a hole in that place. Digging a hole is very difficult in the extreme heat of the desert. He was digging a hole by covering his head and face with a cloth to avoid the heat. When he had almost finished digging the hole, there was a sound of the spade hitting something metal under the sand. Then he began to move the sand with his hand to get a better look. He removed the sand and found a metal box there. Seeing the box, he thought that it might contain some treasure. Then Ali pulled the box out of the sand with great difficulty. Ali took out the box and saw that it had a very strange shaped lock hanging from it. The rust on the lock showed that it was old. After observing the box well, it was understood that it would be something like antiquity. He broke the lock with one stroke of his spade, but could not open the box after much pulling. It seemed that the inside of the box was airtight. When he hit the middle of the two poles with the back of the spade, the branch opened with a pop and smoke came out. He saw inside a piece of red velvet folded in the box. There was nothing inside the box except that velvet. But he was very surprised to see that the red velvet was shiny like new, and something was written on it in an unknown language. He did not understand what language that was, so folded the velvet and put it back in the box. Ali was very disappointed because he expected to find something valuable in that box. Then he thought that this box might be something expensive. Maybe he could get some money by selling it. With this in mind, he took the box to his cottage and kept it. When evening came, Ali put the sheep in the shed and closed the door. Since there was no possibility of sheep being stolen from there, he never locked the door. He just closed the door without locking it. Then he went to his cottage and slept after eating. Late that night, he was woken up by the sound of pushing on the door. But he woke up and noticed that the sound was not coming from the door of his cottage. The sound was coming from the door of the shed keeping the sheep. After some time, he heard the bleating of the sheep. Many sheep were bleating and screaming together. He went out with a flashlight to see what was happening. He went out and saw that the moon had risen in the sky and that there was moonlight shining all around. He then proceeded towards the shed. He found the door open, went inside and saw that the sheep were very scared for some reason. He saw a few drops of blood in one place. Ali was scared to see the blood stains. Even so, he followed the trail of blood with a flashlight. The trail of blood was from the ditch to the back of his cottage. Went to the back of the cottage and saw that the scar went some distance from the farm, as happens when something heavy is dragged over the sand. He followed the trail. He thought to himself that it was the work of desert dogs, but desert dogs never attack alone. They always come in groups. While thinking about this in the moonlight, he suddenly saw something black in the distance. His chest heaved with fear. Approaching, he saw a half-eaten carcass of a sheep lying there with its neck twisted. Seeing this, Ali was very scared and quickly went back to his cottage. Once he fell asleep due to great fear. When he woke up in the morning, he mistook the events of the previous night as a nightmare. But when he counted the sheep, he realized that there was one sheep less. He started thinking about how he would answer the farm owner about the lost sheep. All day, Ali carefully guarded the sheep, and in the evening, put them into the shed again. But now he closed the door of the shed and locked it. Then he went to his cottage and waited. Today he wanted to see who stole the sheep, but he fell asleep while waiting. He was woken up by the sound of pushing on the door again, and like the previous day, this sound was coming from the door of the sheep shed. Then he looked through the crack in the wooden door of the cottage to see who came to steal the sheep every day. But then what he saw was spine-chilling. A shadowy figure wearing a black robe was pushing on the door, which was about 10 feet tall, had long hair blowing in the wind, and its hands were unusually thin and long. He then realized that it was no longer a human being anyway. As he was looking at the thing, it sensed his presence. Because that entity turned its head and looked exactly at him, and in the blink of an eye came from that door to the door of his cottage. Came and started pushing on his door in a very angry manner. Ali got goosebumps with great fear. He heard a very heavy, unusual female voice telling him, "Open the door." He asked in fear, "Who are you?" Then that entity hit the door very loudly and said, "Give me a sheep, I am very hungry, or I will eat your liver." Ali was so scared that he fell on the floor. From outside the door came the sound of horrible groaning. He thought it would break the door and enter. No sense worked in his head. There was another door at the back of the cottage. He opened it and started running unconsciously. As Ali ran, he noticed that the thing was speeding after him by raising a whirlwind of sand in the air. When it came right behind him, he felt a sharp pain behind him and fell into the sand. After falling, he lost consciousness while praying in his heart. He was in a clinic when his consciousness returned. There was also the owner of his farm. When Ali told the farm owner what had happened to him, the farm owner became worried. The farm owner said, "I understand what happened to you. In my grandfather's time, there lived a demon around the farm who ate the sheep every day. To avoid business loss, my grandfather brought a priest and buried the demon under the sand in a box. You found that box and opened it. You have made a big mistake. Because that demon is very evil, and he has become very powerful after being released after all these years. So that farm and its surroundings are now haunted. It would not be safe at all to keep my farm there." Ali left the job of looking after the farm. He was released from the hospital and went to a friend's house. There he heard that the farm owner had moved his farm from that place, because no one on that farm lasted more than 2 days. That area was then known as haunted. But Ali's back was hit by that demon that day and a wound was created, which did not turn out well. Rather, when Ali went back to his country, the condition of this wound continued to deteriorate day by day, and at one point it turned into cancer, as a result of which Ali died in a very short time.